Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, community. Welcome to Circle Genius Podcast Executive Experience. I got a guest for today that's really intriguing to me. I find fascinating. In fact, it's a man that really impacts the world, but you don't hear much about. And we're going to change it today. His name is Brian Adams. He's CEO and founder of Brain Institute of America and the Adams Lab. And I'm going to let him introduce himself. And he does that, by the way, his camera's not working, but you will be able to hear audio. So, Brian, let's get to it. Welcome to the Circle of Genius Podcast Executive Experience. I'm your host, Aaron Alva. I am CEO and founder of Stroke TV Media. I created this podcast to give us access to top-level entrepreneurs, executives, and global thought leaders. So without further ado, here's your host, Aaron Alva. Hey, well, good morning, Professor Adams. Brian Adams, how you doing, bro?
Hi, Aaron. How you doing? Thank you very much for having me on the show again.
It's really my pleasure. It really is. I think it's really going to be a great show because there's a part of you that I don't think. Just introduce yourself, but I'll quit talking. Introduce yourself.
Sure thing. Well, for those who don't know, Brian Adams. I'm the president and CEO of the Brain Institute of America. I'm also the founder of our nonprofit organization, the Brain Institute of America Foundation. Those organizations were founded back in 2016. For myself, I kind of originate or stem from academics. So got my graduate degree at UConn, then did some postdoc work at Yale and Harvard and up in SUNY, New York. And then I decided to start my own lab, my own business, at least on these kind of fronts. I was passionate about developing cures for brain cancer. So, those people who want to know who I am, what I do, that's part of my passion. And through our conversations back and forth, at least me and you and some others, you have me on the show today, I think, to talk a little bit more about my endeavors in the educational space. So I'd be happy to talk a little bit about what's going on there. It's been an interesting journey for me as well to get involved in that. But it's certainly been an experience. So I'm glad to be on the show, and thank you for inviting me on today.
Brian, it's really great to have you. I think people don't understand. You're finding a cure for brain cancer, and that's amazing to me. We all, as society goes, wonder who's doing that. Who's doing the research, scientific research, to make mankind not susceptible to cancer. So we appreciate your work. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, there's just a shameless plug. There's not enough individuals in science. I mean, we have a ton of PhDs to some extent, but they need to be more active in communicating science, I think, to the lay community. And maybe this is where my interest in education comes in as well. Just promoting a lot of more STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math in our primary education system, so we can kind of get those eventually those higher level students and graduates into the sciences and keep them in the sciences, so we can solve some of the major challenges that we still have in our world today. And we have a lot of complex problems still yet to solve. So yeah, that's
we talk about impacting the world. I mean, really. So that, we were in the green room, and this was my main question. I unlocked a side of you I didn't really. It was a teaching side. And I asked you, Brian, what do you want the world to hear about what you do?
Yeah, that was a really tough question. I really had to think about that one because there's so many things that I work on and do and am passionate about. Um, I think for this audience in particular, since it's listen to your show and we're talking about education, I actually do. I do fundamentally believe that teaching is a higher a calling of mine, I guess you could say. I think it's a requirement of service. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be in the academic field for I don't know 15 some odd years or whatever. I mean, I don't know, probably longer than that. I can't. I mean, from whenever I was interested in being in research sciences, which is kind of my whole life. When you get into that kind of field, when you get into academics, I mean, it's great to do the science. It's great to kind of pose all these fun little research questions and see how things work and tinker around in the lab a bit. But then what we tend to forget is there is a lot of service that happens when you want to be staying in that kind of field, as opposed to if you just want to go to industry and just work for a pharma company. I mean, that stuff's fine too. It's great. We need more individuals like that. But individuals who kind of just stay in academics, they have a different kind of, uh, I think, just way of looking at the world. So, I was kind of offered a lot of experience and opportunity in my training. And so I just think it's important for me to kind of give that back. So I think that uh, teaching is a calling to some extent. It's a passion. I don't think you can really. Uh, it's like anything else. If you just sort of treat it as just only a profession, then I think it becomes mundane and boring. I think those who are really passionate about it fight to stay in it, and they just want to, have our next generation understand about like the complex questions that still are around, and that this is exciting stuff. Like science is not boring, math is not boring at all, and if you think it's boring, then there's something wrong because our whole world works, especially now with the way technology is. The whole world is basically predicated based on the fundamental principles of science. So if we want to solve these like large global issues like global warming or some of these chronic healthcare challenges that we now face with people who have metastatic disease, other chronic uh, health issues because people are now living a bit longer, other societal problems like malnutrition in third world countries. I mean, these are problems that can only really be solved by asking new and smarter questions, building better technology. And you can only really do that if you have a community of individuals that have a science mindset and maintain that philosophy as they go from kindergarten all the way up to high school through college and into their adult careers. So it has to be instilled early on, and this is, I guess, that's where I think my passion about education comes from. I just think it needs to start when they're young.
Now I'm curious. Let's let's talk to the younger person out there who's trying to find their way as intrigued with science, intrigued with math, and what path, what how can will you be open to receiving an email from a person like that or kind of guide
Yeah, that's
them?
fine. Yeah,
Could you tell us
yeah.
what
So
your
because, ooh,
could
yeah,
you tell us
I
what
mean,
your go ahead, go
what,
ahead.
what, yeah, go ahead. What my advice would be to that person, I guess, is what you're saying. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'm happy to take any emails or for anybody out there, if they're parents or students, if they're just frustrated with their current system. I contract with different schools to do different teaching programs for many different reasons. I'm happy to take on as many contracts as we can. I have no problem with that. We also do a lot of tutoring, usually because you have students that tend to get either stuck or they are just kind of uh, finding it difficult to navigate their way through the educational process. And it might just be simply the dynamic of teacher student. A lot of these If you remember back to K through 12, you usually know your teacher from, yesteryear for, it's like, oh, I have this person again. And, so there's a dynamic there. And sometimes that dynamic gets kind of stale. So it's nothing to do with anyone's fault or anything like that. But sometimes bringing on a third party, in this case, such as myself, kind of helps that because it kind of reinvigorates just the course material, because somebody else new is not necessarily teaching it, but just presenting the information in a certain way. It kind of re-engages their brain a little bit and kind of gets them refocused. So I just want to put that out there. Like, we're not really an adversarial group. We're not there to sort of conflict with any kind of programs that are ongoing. We do work that's aligned with state standards. So in Connecticut, we have a state mandated core curriculum. We follow that for the most part. We also do SAT preps and all this stuff. So try to get those kids that may be struggling and think that there's maybe no real hope or interest to go to college because they're struggling so much in K through 12 that they're like, well, college isn't for me because this is just like tough. We try to get them back from that mindset and tell them, no, you should go to a community college or something to start, or go to any kind of college for a year or two and just see what it's like. And let's kind of get you prepared for that. Everyone has it's just America, so everyone has the ability, if they so choose, to get go go get their college degree. Sometimes they have to work for it a little bit more than others, but it's there, and you have every right to work for that. So, and you shouldn't be precluded, or because you're thought of to be different, or your mind works a little differently. Um, I say it that way. Like, we're in the world now of being neurodivergent, so there's a lot of students out there that just can't be sit in a classroom and just be taught the stuff on a lecture or two, and then absorb the material and then regurgitate it back out on a quiz or a test. It just it just doesn't work for them that way. So they're the ones that kind of struggle. uh, and so what I say is to all the students out there, if you have any inkling and interest in science or math, and if anybody in your group is either socially, from your peers, from parents, or whatever, if anyone is telling you that it's not interesting stuff, then I say go to your guidance counselor, go to someone at your school that you could trust. You could reach out to someone like myself if you really want to. We work with the parents, so eventually that'll kind of all work out. There's plenty of other third-party tutoring companies out there. Um, but go try to get an extra resource out there. Don't let somebody else tell you that this stuff is boring. Don't be pressured into not choosing an academic path. It's kind of happens around middle school, high school, right? Sort of just, okay, the course material is getting tough. I'm struggling in it. There's no one out there to help me. And then I go, well, this is not for me. And you just give up. And we just are trying to get students not to really go down that path. So there's plenty of resources out there. I guess, like I said, since I'm on your show and we're interacting with your group, you can share my email address. It's on the website, but at least maybe now people know a little bit about me and who I am, and it puts a kind of sort of face to the name, so to speak. Uh, but we've been doing education programs in this state since, well, since I taught when I was, a postdoc, but formerly with the company, I've been doing tutoring and all this stuff since 2016.
Wow.
And we've been doing this through COVID. So we knew of all the challenges that were going on during COVID, all the parents who were really upset about sort of what was going on in the school system, and just frustrated with why their kids were just not really getting anything. A lot of it because it was just unstructured online learning. I say unstructured because it was mostly just kids jumped on a Zoom call and they just did some online reading or something like this. There wasn't really any engagement in course material and things like this. But I mean, COVID was kind of hyperinflated situation that, um, but then we kind of still got involved in this kind of stuff after COVID, and still just saw some really strange things in our public school systems. So, it's just one of those things of, I understand where students are coming from when they get frustrated. And, we're a reach out for them. Obviously, we can work together, not only to just teach you the course material, but also give you the students like skills you need to organize maybe your home life a little better, or restructure your schedule so that you are in an environment that you are comfortable to work in, and that you can do your studies and not really be judged or made fun of for caring about like learning and maintaining your interest in math and science. I think that's really, really important. I mean, FYI, part of my office in New Haven over here, it's kind of a very eclectic setup over here. I got like a fireplace and a whiteboard or whatever, and I got a little mini garden and some bookshelves and things, and got like a little mini Zen garden going on. And but the idea is, sometimes, I've had parents and students over here, and they can vouch that it's a fine place. And the idea is just to create a warm and inviting uh, area for students, just to feel comfortable, like if they were at their home, or maybe in some cases is better than the current living situation. I mean, I'm in the inner city, so we have no idea what goes on at in a person's home. um, but they just feel kind of comfortable doing reading or doing math, or anything like this, and they can see the achievements and what you can do with a degree in math and science. So
Well,
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I say, I want to touch on something you said, and it really kind of stuck with me because I thought back when I was a younger person, and I, you said your brain works differently, and
Mhm.
that you're judged and made to feel almost wrong that you're into science, you're into math, you're into critical thing, but the environment was wrong. And you have a tutelage that allows the environment to be correct, and allows that academic mind to blossom and to express itself like you did.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Like, so, okay. So unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, public school systems are just established to try to teach a bulk amount of material en masse to all, uh, obviously, children of all walks of life. And it's very hard to, um, you know, in some cases, just micromanage every individual learner and tailor a program for that unique individual. Because even though we focus on getting smaller class sizes, there's still sometimes 20 or 30 students in a class, or maybe even 15 or something in a class. And you do this year in and year out, and you get so many students, and sometimes it just gets really uh, tiring, right? So the problem number one is just like the way the program is. It's just to teach to the normal distribution, the bell curve kind of idea. The people in the middle, those students that are on the either end of that curve, they really, really excel, or they're under excelling or underachieving, or perceived to be underachieving. They kind of either they kind of get left out. So I want to speak to that a little bit. Actually, now that I
Please,
just
please.
mentioned that, you know, they teach to the bell curve. So if you're, I can focus on the left hand side of the curve, right? So if you're in the minority or perceived minority that's struggling, you might be thought of as, academically unintelligent, you know, a dunce, whatever, a stupid head, whatever names are being called. Trust me, I'm in the education system, so kids call each other. Kids call other kids mean names all the time, and so they get labeled pretty quickly, which is kind of unfortunate. Um, but some of those students are not, and if they're not really diagnosed with any sort of mental handicap or deficiency, um, then the question is why aren't they engaging in the course material? Why aren't they uh, excelling on just simple quizzes, like some math formulas that are on a blank sheet of paper. And sometimes, it's an undiagnosed problem. Maybe they have ADHD, or maybe they you know uh, I don't know, have other, maybe they're on a little bit on the spectrum and they're a little autistic to some extent. But I want to step away from that just a little bit, because sometimes we really focus or hyper focus on diagnosing everyone. Okay. Sometimes it could just be simply that the way their brains are, they're just not going to get the course material. If like, and as an example for me on your show right now, just me talking. Okay. Just, and then the student has to try to take down some notes of the verbiage that spews out of my mouth, right? Like just but that you when you went to school, it was probably this way, and when I went to school, I mean, I was still working on paper. I would write down all my math formulas on paper. You got to remember nowadays, everyone works on Chromebooks. I mean, I don't even think when they write, I mean, unless they're in a special English class that really emphasizes on having them taking notes and things on books that they read, they're probably also writing stuff on word processing documents. So the point is that individuals can sometimes have a mindset where they are more visual. So they will like to engage the material if they see a picture on the board, um, or some kind of, like some summary synopsis of what goes on, like a small little video about how to solve a math problem, as an example, or they can see something on the board itself. Has to be like very contrasty and has to be kind of like, you know an interesting graphic that kind of engages their mind, especially nowadays, because I know that kids are on iPads and they play these crazy games, even if they're math-based games that are very densely, you know, uh, the information's kind of dense, right? Like there's just tons of graphical information that are on these games. Bubbles abound, and depth of some character working through like a 3 or 4D space. It's just very visually stimulating. So when you go into the classroom and then they go, okay, we're going to draw on the whiteboard, sometimes it might not even be visual enough for them. It was just kind of a frustrating thing, but that's how their mind works. So if they see a picture, they see a video, or they get taught that way, they may actually engage in the course material a bit more. Some are auditory, so some are fine with me just spewing out and talking verbatim. And you show them a picture, and they're just like, whatever. Uh, it's just so those are the people that are the history buffs. If you ever go to a history class, the history teacher is just you know just spewing out historical facts over time, and that is essentially oop, I don't know what's going on here. That is essentially how they work, their minds work.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you may or may not have heard. There was a song written by a band called Pink Floyd called "Brick in the Wall."
Oh
All,
yeah.
all, and I hear you talk. I when you speak, I see our educational system is set up for mass brick in the wall. Everybody is put into a mold that's supposed to be the certain shape, size, and take on what they say. But what you're saying is that this means to be who you are as an individual, and there is a reason for that. You may be academically inclined, visually inclined, auditory inclined, but you're not a brick. It doesn't mean you're worthless. It means you have something different about you.
Yeah, exactly. No one should be thought of like a brick on the wall. I mean, I think that's kind of really kind of horrible way of thinking about things. Also, it's also to the teachers too. You're not bricks in the wall necessarily. I mean, there are some bad apples still, and I think there is a lot of apathy in our educational system, which is unfortunate. And I think it is because most just treat it as a 9 to 5 profession, or whatever it may be, for you're going into school and that's it. And that's just kind of like the lifestyle. There's plenty of other teachers out there that just make it their entire life to be that, that kind of teacher. It takes a lot of effort though to continue with that kind of energy level. So I'm not necessarily going against any kind of teacher out there per se, though I've heard and I know of personally some stories where I really wish I did not hear those kind of things about just what goes on in the classroom. It gets me frustrated because for myself, it took me quite some time to get back involved in the education system more formally. And when I just sort of hear these other less than desirable stories about what goes on in our classrooms, I just go, well, how can this person still be teaching? And yet I'm the one over here having a whole business and having to run all these contracts and do all this stuff and convince everyone that, I'm in it for the good. So there's days like that it gets frustrating for me. I think I just had to share that with your audience. Like it was actually kind of a fight to kind of be at this point. I don't think it's, an institution or anyone or institution like that. I just think certain times we had certain individuals in certain places and uh, at those institutions, and they kind of just finally backed off and said, okay, well, he's not really trying to hurt people. He's really actually trying to help our students. Um, so, but I think that's, you said you want to know a little bit about me. I think that's just me humbling myself and just saying, like, it's not just me saying, hey, I'm just Dr. Adams. I'm this perfect person. And, now I want to change the entire educational structure. It's not that, it's really not that at all. It's just, it has really been for myself and for my business, a fight to kind of be involved in that process, and I'm kind of glad that I stuck to my guns and took the time to show people that we really are focusing more on the students and making sure that they are empowered. I'm not really a bureaucratic person. I think bureaucracy is kind of silly. I'm a person that will say, look, I can teach you 5 different ways to solve the math problem, but if I just give you the formula and tell you to memorize the formula, all those little tricks that everyone tries to give you about how to carry some number from one place to another and organize stuff all falls by the wayside. Math is just a series of formulas. If you just give the formula up front and tell them this is what you have to memorize, somehow miraculously a lot of students get it pretty quick. So it's just and sometimes that's what they need too. A lot of students, sometimes you just have to talk with them and tell them that you respect them, number one, and that or for myself, like, I think that they are amazing individuals, and I'm not trying to tell them that they're silly or dumb or stupid. I'm just trying to give them some tips and tricks on how to, like, get through their coursework. And I just want to touch back on one thing real quick. There is another kind of uh, group of individuals out there that are more kinesthetic or tactile. And this, I think, is a group of learners that can be on that bottom end of the curve because they have to engage in course material in certain ways. Like, they work through touch, which means they work better with pencil to paper or pen to paper. And I think sometimes with the advent of technology, with the addition of the Google Classroom and some other things, and these sort of app games that claim to get your kids to know about math, I think some of that wiring is short circuited when if they're more of a tactile learner, because they're not engaging on paper. And they're not writing their notes down. They're not rewriting their notes down. They're not writing down material on flashcards. They're not doing a whole bunch of different things. And that's just how their neural network works. Like, that's how they remember information. That's how their brain categorizes things and says, okay, this is the important stuff that you need to remember. And so, we got to be careful because I'm all for tech. Like, we all love cell phones, and I'm a busy guy. I have a company. I'm getting emails all the time about things. But at the same time, when we're in a classroom setting, okay, that technology kind of has to go out the door a little bit because, you know, we need that quiet environment, and we need them to be focused, and students to pay attention to the lecture material. So they're fully engaged in what's going on in the classroom and not being distracted with other things. So it's not just one person or one thing that's necessarily leading to a problem in this education system. But I think the challenge is that we're still very structured, and the public education system is just very set in the ways in which they're going to teach the curriculum, and that rigidity is just does not work for or it kind of conflicts with, I think, that kind of American philosophy a little bit of like, I'm this unique individual, and I'm also special, and this is the way I learn, and a lot of eyes in that statement. But when you go to the public education system, it's just more about, this is the path, you must learn it this way, and that's it.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that's just just how the public education system was founded, and the original use and the intent for all of that. We won't get into the history of that now, but a little has changed with that kind of way of thinking and that kind of philosophy. So individualized teaching programs are not really a place for in the public education system, unfortunately. That's why you have these third party tutoring education companies that come in, and usually the parents seek them out. I get more emails from parents. I've probably gotten my email box has probably doubled from parents with their interest in just getting a tutor for their kid, because they just don't understand what, little Johnny or whatever it is, was doing so good in school when they were in sixth grade, and then they get to seventh or eighth grade, and all of a sudden they're failing their class, and they're trying to figure out why. So it takes a lot of energy to figure out what's going on. And I just got to tell you, like, to those teachers out there, in the public education space, you have to give respect to individuals that do third party tutoring. Okay. Because a lot of us also are trying to figure out not only what's going on in the classroom, but what's actually going on in the student's home life. Um, have no idea. They could be being bullied in school, and that could still be going on online. We've had cases, and we know about this, where you have cyberbullying going on. And once you have a negative interaction about an education process, okay, like that,
Right.
right? You're constantly told you're an idiot or you're a dork, or I don't know, you know,
Whatever.
you're never going to get the math right. This is not for you, blah blah blah, and or they just pick on you for other reasons. It just, your brain disengages pretty quick, and the problem is sometimes parents don't know what's going on. I mean, we're also certified with DCF in the state of Connecticut. It's not really anything. It just means, like, if we see any bad behavior from anybody with students, we get really upset pretty quickly. And I'm actually a mandated reporter in the state. I have to report any of that kind of stuff. But the point is again, you don't know what's going on in their home life. You don't know what's going on in their personal life. Sometimes students share stories that they don't tell anybody else, because they look at us sometimes as just a friend, and somebody's trying to help them. So, and that's tough, because that's also not necessarily the
Uh, uh, we're losing you. Tony, I
role
want to ask you.
of a teacher. Uh, it's it's kind of hard to keep track of all that sometimes. You know what I mean? So, like I said, we're not trying to say we're better than anybody else. We're not really trying to fault anybody per se, but we are kind of an advocate. But we're advocate more for the student. We really, you know, try to get students to have a plan, an academic plan for how they're going to stay away from unsafe situations, stay in safe, quiet areas where they are comfortable and they can do the work, and they're rewarded and empowered for doing this academic work, and that, they are treated with respect, and we give them a path for understanding that, or just giving them the tools to say, like, okay, you can go to college and you can do something with an advanced degree. You don't have to say, That's it for me, So we want to give them a lot of hope. And then finally, the only other thing, because I know you're going to ask me a ton of questions, and I'm open for that. The only thing I also wanted to mention is that on the right side of the curve, there may be very, very, very bright students out there. And anybody's listening, you all know who I'm talking about. Okay. There are many, many students that will get A's and A's and A's when they're sixth, seventh, maybe eighth grade. And all of a sudden they go to high school and all of a sudden they're getting C's and D's. And so you have to go to yourself, well, why is that going on? Or it might happen younger. Middle school is also a transition period. So when you get into sixth and seventh grade, it's a big behavioral change going on there a lot of times. So when you see a grade drop like that, you have to go, what's really happening? And what happens there is sometimes the problem is the material being taught. There are individuals that are very, very bright and they constantly need new information, more complex information, to stay engaged in the course material.
They need to be challenged.
They need to be challenged. Yeah. So that's tough because, across different states, right, is you all have different mandates for what has to get taught in school. I mean, obviously, some obviously some of that information is the same. I mean, across the board nationally, there is a standardized a bit of information that has to get taught to our kids, but from state to state, it widely varies. And this is my big gripe about college prep classes. I mean, I don't want to say too much, but there's been plenty of cases where I'm at the college level and I go and, I talk to my students and they say, well, we have, back in the day too, it was like, just, hey, it's like, we have no idea what you're talking about, professor. It's like, how could you not know this stuff? Like, a good example is I just did a contract with somebody else. I'm not going to say who. They're telling me how they're the best science teacher on the planet, and yet on one of their worksheets, they literally have on there that plants don't have any cell membranes. They only have cell walls. And I thought to myself, well, that's really interesting because plants take up water, and if they had no membranes, then I guess water would just freely flow inside and outside
Right.
the cell, and that would be it. So it's just kind of things where maybe it's it makes it, when that stuff happens, it makes the teacher look bad because you're talking right to my face, and I'm sitting there. I have a PhD, and I did, work on leukemia and triple negative breast cancer, and it's just like, well, okay, no respect for you right now. Sorry, man. It's like I just can't. But it's just, but that's the thing though. It's frustrating because some of them are thrown into that situation, and they're also forced to they get these books that teach to the masses, and there's error in books all the time. So, so there are some situations where the resources that are provided to our teachers are also not adequate. I think that's a better way to put that.
Right.
So I do actually think instead of focusing so much on, and it's okay to do focus on the metrics of the test taking. I get why we have to do that on a national standard. I think we should actually just make sure the resources that we are giving our teachers are the same. I think a lot of opinions about things sometimes should stay out of the classroom. Like I've
Right.
seen people, teachers try to coax students to think a certain way. That's, in my view, that's not your job. Your job is to teach them the vocab, the vernacular, the science, the math. Um, and you're not their parents. That's not your job there. Uh, and that's just my philosophy about things. If your student's not doing good in science or math, reach out to somebody else. Ask the school system to maybe get an in-person tutor or in-school tutor that can help support the teaching program, and be more open, especially for these cases of individuals that are on the lower end of the spectrum, so to speak, or not really the spectrum, but just sort of like viewed as unengaged, unintelligent, and whatever, versus that the other end of the spectrum, which is like, okay, they're really intelligent, and we just don't have any course information to give the student because they get the homework done in like 2 minutes, and then they're bored and they sit in class
Right.
bored all day. What do I do for that student? So you have to. I think we just have to stop this sort of pedagogical system of we're the teachers and you're the students, and this is what you need to learn, and that's it. Uh, because parents are already going out to other groups and trying to get support for their kids, and it's not going to stop. When the parents get frustrated enough, they'll eventually take their kids out of the public school system and go to a charter school or something like that.
Right.
They get really frustrated. So it's not, that those cases have happened as well. So I think we have to be more responsive and we have to be more respectful in these educational spaces. Because the goal isn't, for the teachers, and even to myself, I tell it to myself when I'm teaching, I'm not the person who's important here. I know my education journey. I know what I know. I know I'm a lifelong learner. Like I will always still read science papers. I edit papers all the time. I do a whole bunch of stuff with science writing. I do all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to teaching, I am a nobody. My
Right.
students are the most important thing to me. If my students are struggling, I ask them what is going on and do they need more time on an assignment, or what about the lecture was a challenge for them so I can improve my lectures the next time around.
Right.
I,
We're trying to eat to catch up. We're actually over time. We're actually the podcast is over, but I was unaware you're actual professor at a university or school. Where do you, let's give your school a shout out, shall we? What school you're a professor at?
Oh, well, let's just put it this way to be equitable to all. Okay. I teach at a couple different schools. So we're just, those contracts are standing. They know who they are. So I'm just going to give a shout out to my students. They know
All
who
right.
they are.
That,
I just
that,
want to, yeah, just, because it's been such an interesting little process, I kind of will defer to, I'll say HIPAA or something like that. I don't know. I plead the fifth. I don't know, but the students know who I am. I think you're all wonderful students, by the way. I appreciate you. I appreciate the schools that give me a chance. My heart goes out to y'all. I know it's a tough thing. When I was invited to do this podcast, I have to say I was kind of apprehensive at first because I was like, there's been so much dynamic between me and the school systems over here. But again, I think I did it the right way. I think for you all to know is like my heart is in teaching. There are moments where I'll be frustrated with the process and sometimes certain school systems, but I look for the fact that it's an opportunity for both of us to grow and to develop better programs for our students. I really just want to communicate that. I thank Aaron for giving me the opportunity to express that emotion, because it's nothing coming out of anger or frustration. It's just I've been blessed with an opportunity to teach many wonderful students, and I would just like to continue that going forward because it is a passion of mine. So, but yeah, much
I
love
want
to all my
I
students
think
out there.
you are a breath of fresh air as far as hearing you. I want to hear everybody out there be who you are, be your individual self, and do not get lumped in with the crowd because the very thing you may think that you're deficient in or you're being told you can't learn or whatever, it may be the very thing you need to shift the way you're being taught. And Brian, thank you. I want to thank you so much for being here. And please, if somebody out there listening wants to send you an email, make contact with you, please state your email, and I'll put your links also in the description.
Sure. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, thank you so much for inviting me on. I just want to echo your point. I know we're over time, but to anyone out there, to any student, if anyone is telling you you can't do this, okay, or if any teacher is ever saying, and I, you know, God forbid, but if anyone's ever saying anything like you can't learn this and you just have to be here or whatever, just go find a different opinion.
Right, right.
Yeah. We you just may be engaging the course material a little different, and both parties in that situation may just not have the tools for you. And there are plenty of other individuals that can kind of help that process, help the teacher, and also help the student succeed academically. So we're a positive force for that kind of dynamic.
That's really good, Brian. Give everybody your email that may be listening and want to contact you. How do they send you what's your email address?
The best one still is just I can put it. I don't know if I can put it in the
I
chat.
can put it I'll put it in the description of video.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm typing it in the chat so that way you can
I
copy paste it. Because it's brian.adams@braininstituteamerica.com. That's just a company email that you could use. So my name is brian.adams@braininstituteamerica.com. I put it in the chat link there. So I think Aaron, you can probably copy paste that and put
Yeah.
it in the description over there. That's still the best way. And what we can do is if you just want to put in the subject line or the tagline, requesting educational support, something like this.
Yeah.
We also have the website, which is just brain instituteamerica.com. It'll just direct right to our main site. So braininstituteamerica.com, put that in there. On the contact page on that site, you just put @education or something like this, I think, and you just put in the contact box like who you are, what the problem is. So, this is a contact phone number or email address, so that we can reach out to you, and we can put you in touch with the educational team and try to get an appointment set so we can figure out what's going on with you or your child. But yeah, those are the two resources I can give to you all.
Well, Brian, what a service, really. I mean, you talk about service. That's really great. That means you're serving mankind. I really appreciate it. Brian, I can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you so much. And please, audience, if you're out there listening to some replay, reach out to Brian, reach out to his team, and they'll help you navigate. That's true for a student and the parent that the invitation out to both of you. So, Brian, thanks again for being here. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you for
I,
inviting me on.
you too, Brian. Have a good. Bye. Bye.